was going to write an article called "Is There a Left Out There?" Because it's so strange to listen to these young people who have no historic memory of whatsoever. Not only do young people not have a historic memory, I'm speaking very objectively. I'm not out to disparage anyone, belittle anyone, sound condescending or patronizing. I'm just speaking very objectively, I think. Not only do young people have no historic memory, what's even more uh, disturbing is they have no historical curiosity. You see, in my day, let's say I grew up in the 1960s and 70s, and we knew the veterans of the Communist Party. We knew the people who fought in Spain during the Spanish Civil War. We knew this, that, and other people. They were still alive, namely the people from the era of the two great struggles of the 20th century, namely the struggle against fascism and the Great Depression, the organizing of the working class in our country. So when I would meet a veteran of the Communist Party, I was always so excited to talk to them, to ask them, what was it like? What was it like to fight in Spain? To go off and fight in Spain? It was a real thrill to meet these veterans of the great historic epoch that preceded my own. Young people, they have no interest whatsoever. I've never had a young person ask me, what was it like to oppose the war in Vietnam? What were the demonstrations like? What were the sit-ins like? What were what we call teach-ins back then? Nobody has any interest whatsoever. The Vietnam War can be the War of the Roses. No, really, they have no historic interest whatsoever, none. The only thing they have is this kind of, the Black Panthers, because it was so cool and so chill. The afros, the guns, which is all just telegenic. There was no politics there. So I don't entirely fault the left when I say, is there a left out there? Because they have no concept of what a left is. But it was just part and parcel of being a leftist. And you folks in Iran, in any country, knows that part of being in the left was in the periodic electoral cycle. The left always ran its candidates. That was just a standard. Third party, you could say third minus party. I mean, these were groupuscules, as the French would call them. These very tiny groups, but the electoral cycle was an opportunity to put forth your ideas, to have a platform to reach people. And the idea that you should fault Cornel West a year before the election's a year off. For even contemplating a third party run just to present alternative ideas, to present a radical platform, that's number one. Number two, nobody could predict what's going to happen in the next year. It's impossible to predict. I think I've never believed Biden was going to run. No, I did not. And I still don't believe it. I think his wife will tell him.
Oh, now you mean the second time.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think he would run again for the presidency. At some point, his wife is going to. Yeah, I think it's still possible. His wife will step in and say, "Dear, I really don't think you should do this." So we don't know who the Democratic Party candidate is going to be. It's possible, not likely, but it's possible that Trump will be in jail. It's not impossible that that's going to come to pass. And what's most important, leaving aside the elite level, all the polls show 70% of Americans don't want a Trump-Biden election this year. Among Democrats, 51% of Democrats say they're looking around for another candidate. They'd rather not have Biden. So everything is, number one, Everything is in flux. Everything is unpredictable. So why are people coming along saying, oh, if he gets 3% or if he gets 5%, are people's historical memories so short? Are they so tweaked, limited, that they don't remember that in 2016, nobody, least of all Bernie Sanders, expected anybody was going to come out to hear him? He thought he was just going to do, if I might return to what I said earlier, what old-fashioned leftists did. They used the opportunity of the electoral cycle to draw attention to their ideas. That's all he thought. He thought there'd be 10 or 20 people. Fast forward to 2020, were it not for South Carolina and the events immediately following it when Obama picked up the phone and Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar dropped out. Were it not for that 48 hours after South Carolina, it's quite likely Bernie would have won. At least that's what David Plouffe, who is Obama's campaign manager, has said. He said, had it not been within that short space of 48 hours that Klobuchar and Buttigieg dropped out, Bernie would have won the primary. And in the face of that, we're talking about less than 4 years ago. We're in 2023. That was 2020. To be so certain that Cornel West's candidacy is going to be a flop, that he can't possibly get at most maximum 5%. I don't think that. I could be wrong, but I follow politics pretty closely. I don't see any basis for that assumption. Do you remember everyone? Do you remember when I don't see any basis. Do you remember how everybody for the Cornell not doing better than 5%? I don't see that. They're saying that's the outside, the maximum, 5%. Why? What's the basis for that? Do you remember that up until November, there were exactly two people who predicted publicly Trump's victory? Number one was the only political science professor in the country, the only one, Alan Lichtman, predicted a Trump victory, and Michael Moore predicted a Trump victory. That was it. So whence this certitude that Cornel West is going to flop? Why are you giving in? That's one side of the story. The other side of the story is there are many possibilities between now and November. If Cornell gets 25% of the electorate, I think that's possible. That would be huge leverage against the Democratic Party. You can make very serious demands. You could say, you want my support? You're going to have to do A, B, C, and D. That would be really powerful leverage with the Democratic Party. Now, you might say, okay, they're going to give in to his demands, and we know what Biden will do, assuming it's Biden, the day after. That's fine. I have no problem with that argument. But then you have a movement in place. And then you could start step two. You made these promises. You made these promises in public. You betrayed us. Now we start with the sit-ins. Now we're going to jail. Now we're going to stop traffic. Now we're going to go into bridges. And we're going to go into tunnels. And we're going to, as we said in the 1960s, during the war in Vietnam, no business as usual. No more business as usual. There are real possibilities. Why are you throwing cold water? You call yourself leftists? You call yourself people on the left? It's pitiful. It's pathetic. It's such a constricted, constrained, claustrophobic imagination. The idea they can't even conceive a third party. These people, they can't even conceive it.
No, I agree with that, and I mean, I mean, you could even go further, perhaps, and you don't even have to say, okay, maybe he'll do good, maybe he won't do bad. But then it's also relying on the lesser of the two evil arguments, which is also, I mean, in reality, given all the external circumstances, that Trump would be so much worse than Biden, even that is not a very clear-cut argument or
Look,
very evidence-based.
I could understand that argument, and many people on the real left, people like Noam Chomsky, and I suspect, I can't say for certain, but Alan Nairn, you may or may not know him, people who are really the sharpest and shrewdest commentators, they do regard Trump as a serious threat. I don't like to use the word fascist because I think the word has just been totally cheapened, but a serious authoritarian threat. Fine, I can understand that argument. However, even if you do believe that, and I can understand that, I don't want to in any way be dismissive of it, there are a couple of things, qualifications I would make. Number one, I think everybody would agree there are three major challenges facing our country and humanity in general.